Hello!
Hi, that's special Christmas edition.
Yay! Monoglossia Christmas Part 1.
Yeah.
So, today we're going to talk about Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. It's one of my favorite books ever.
Actually, I discovered it quite late. I think the first time I've actually heard of the Christmas Carol was thanks to Scrooge McDuck. So there you go.
Well, at least you knew the reference. I don't think I
Mm.
did when I was little, when I was watching Disney.
Yeah.
All right. Actually, I guess I knew it in Bulgarian first. So.
Fun fact: Scrooge McDuck is actually Picsou in French, which means actually steal,
All right.
Coins.
What about the three ducklings? They also have some really funny names.
Riri, Fifi, et Loulou.
All right, it's Huey, Dewey, and Louie, right, guys? Everyone knows that.
Yeah, not funny.
Okay, so when he told me that Scrooge was saying humbug all the time, I was like, what? Where is he? Not only was that not rendered in Bulgarian with some appropriate translation, but I also didn't feel that he was repeating the same thing all the time, like any equivalent of nonsense or something like that. So can you please explain to me what humbug actually is?
Actually, well, I never really thought about this. I just thought it was sort of an onomatopoeia, but actually a humbug, I just researched that this morning, means hypocrite. Someone was how should I put it? Was an agenda, who doesn't say or act in truthfully. So yeah, and that's part of Scrooge's character, by the way. He really wants to. He says he sees the world as it is. So.
And he's kind of honest, isn't he? Like
I suppose.
Yeah. I think in one of the quotations we're going to read, he's going to come up as really unable to not act honestly, no matter how much he tries to. All right. Can you please read the first extract? It's the very beginning of the book.
I shall probably butcher this, but Marley was dead to begin with. There is no doubt whatever about that. The register of his burial was signed by the clergyman, the clerk, the undertaker, and the chief mourner. Scrooge signed it, and Scrooge's name was good upon change for anything he chose to put his hand to. Old Marley was as dead as a doornail. Mind, I don't mean to say that I know, of my own knowledge, what there is particularly dead about a doornail. I might have been inclined myself to regard a coffin nail as the deadest piece of ironmongery in the trade. But the wisdom of our ancestors is in the simile, and my unhallowed hands shall not disturb it, or the country is done for. You will therefore permit me to repeat emphatically that Marley was as dead as a doornail. So, I really like the, how should I put it, the touch of irony, mentioning oh yeah, of course, popular wisdom, old-fashioned wisdom is necessarily right, otherwise the country would crumble. We have that sort of humor too.
Yeah, there's maybe the sarcasm of it, but also I found it interesting as a statement, talking about the proverb, and him saying that he would have thought coffin nail would be better, which actually it absolutely wouldn't, because the idea of a proverb, although I'm not good at reading the meaning of proverbs very often, but the idea is that it says something that's not related. It comes from a different realm, and that's the interesting thing in applying it to something else. So if you mention coffin, you've already mentioned human death and all that, so it doesn't work as figurative speech in this case. It comes from the same field of speech. There's this thing I like mentioning. I think it was Levi-Strauss that said it, that for example, when you name a dog, you give the dog a name that has nothing to do with the human name, because the dog is part of your life. You go to walks together, you do stuff together, you call the dog's name, so the name cannot be like the name of a human.
Yeah.
But if it's a birdie, let's say, you can absolutely give the birdie like some name, like Mr. something, like some serious human name, because the world of the bird is really not interconnected with...
It's a pretty interesting concept.
Yeah, it is. I really find this cool. So yeah, so it would have been, of course, I think Charles Dickens did that on purpose, but that would have been a very wrong kind of way to put it, like as a coffin nail. Right.
But yeah.
Also, you can already sense like some archaic speech that even seems ungrammatical today. Like there is no doubt whatever, not whatsoever about that. You know, good upon and mind, like mind you. Something.
I wouldn't have noticed. Like.
Yeah. Okay. Now let me read another one. This happens when the ghost of Marley, Scrooge's ex-co-worker, appears to him. "How now?" said Scrooge, caustic and cold as ever. "What do you want with me?" "Much," Marley's voice, no doubt about it. "Who are you?" "Ask me who I was." "Who were you then?" said Scrooge, raising his voice. "You're particular, for a shade." He was going to say "to a shade," but substituted this as more appropriate. "In life I was your partner, Jacob Marley." So first of all, very nice dialogue, very nice exchange, like very smooth. Like, what do you want from me? Much. Who was I? Kind of really a catchy flow.
Yeah.
And also, of course, I find this amazing, very Shakespearean, the play on words of "you're particular for a shade," because he is a shade or a ghost. But at first he wanted to say "to a shade." You know what that means? A little bit.
Yeah,
like a little bit to some degree. He wanted to say you're particular, you're a little bit particular, but he ended up saying for a shade.
Type of like very brief and this type of dialogue, it's called a quip. Like when you actually say something like very fast, but it's actually kind of witty. It's called a quip.
All right.
And, so yeah, the more you know.
Cool. Let's continue. So we're still there. He's still talking to the ghost of Marley, because there will be other ghosts. And Marley is asking him, does he trust his senses that it's really him? "Why do you doubt your senses?" "Because," said Scrooge, "a little thing affects them. A slight disorder of the stomach makes them cheats. You may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of an underdone potato. There's more of gravy than of grave about you, whatever you are." Again, I would say very cool, very Shakespearean pun, gravy, which of course is the English sauce. Very much eaten, I think, with the Christmas meal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the Sunday roast,
Yeah.
which is also a staple of British culture.
And I like it how he says, you know, "you may be." I think it's really imaginative, like not like "you may be caused by," "you may be like an undigested you know, bit of beef, you may be an underdone potato."
Yeah, you're less than nothing. Yeah.
Yeah, and like there's some very nice enumeration of ways to count items of food, like especially uncountable items of food. You got a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of potato. Okay, I give you this one.
Yeah.
Okay, this takes place when Scrooge goes back to one of the past Christmases and he meets his fiancée, and she breaks up with him because she realizes that he doesn't love her anymore the way that he did when they promised to marry each other.
All right. In a changed nature, in an altered state, in another atmosphere of life, another hope as its great end. In everything that made my love of any worth or value in your sight. If this had never been between us, said the girl, looking mildly, but with steadiness, upon him. Tell me, would you seek me out and try to win me now? Ah, no. He seemed to yield to the justice. He seemed to yield to the justice of this supposition, in spite of himself. But he said with a struggle, "You think not."
That's actually what I was talking about. That he's very honest.
Yeah.
Like he really feels that what she's saying is true.
Yeah.
And he's trying to contradict her. He doesn't manage to say no, that's not true.
Yeah.
The only compromise that he kind of makes is just saying, "You think not," which sounds a bit like you're wrong to think so, but also he doesn't really say it. He doesn't manage to.
Yeah.
This makes me think a bit of a bit far-fetched, but like there's this Japanese notion that it's very important what you say because it becomes real when you say it.
Interesting.
Yep. Also here we have some synonyms, again enumeration, like change nature, alter spirit, another atmosphere. I think all of this could have been the same word, like just different, but instead of that he chooses to use different synonyms to convey it. And like make an enumeration along with the adjective rather than one adjective and then, then different nouns. Okay, I got a long one for you.
Yeah, no worries.
So this is in the present Christmas when Scrooge visits his nephew's home and they're having a party. And they end up mentioning him a couple of times, and this is one where they're playing a game.
Right. It was a game called Yes and No, where Scrooge's nephew had to think of something, and the rest must find out what. He only answering to their questions yes or no. This is a typical French way of pronouncing S's. You don't. As the case was, the brisk fire of questioning to which he was exposed elicited from him that he was thinking of an animal, a live animal, or rather a disagreeable animal, a savage animal, an animal that growled and grunted sometimes, and talked sometimes, and lived in London, and walked about the streets, and wasn't made a show of, and wasn't led by anybody, and didn't live in a menagerie. Menagerie? Yeah, menagerie. And was never killed in a market, and was not a horse, or an ass, or a cow, or a bull, or a tiger, or a dog, or a pig, or a cat, or a bear. At every fresh question that was put to him, this nephew burst into a fresh roar of laughter, and was so inexpressibly tickled that he was obliged to get up off the sofa and stamp. At last the plump sister, falling into a similar state, cried out, "I found out! I know what it is, Fred. I know what it is." What is it?" cried Fred. "It's your Uncle Scrooge," which it certainly was. Admiration was the universal sentiment, though some objected that the reply to "Is it a bear?" ought to have been yes, inasmuch as an answer in the negative was sufficient to have diverted their thoughts from Mr. Scrooge, supposing they had ever had any tendency in that way.
Right, my first thought. So why a bear of all things? I mean, they literally said ass. Wouldn't that have been the most offensive? Or pig? Why bear?
It would have been offensive. I have my little theory in this, and that bear actually locked themselves in at least during the winter. It's set in winter time, obviously, a Christmas Carol. And bears tend to hibernate. Yeah. So, since he's always locked in his den, I suppose that could fit.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Thank you.
Alright, so that's one cool language game. Actually, we've played this with our son. In our variation, we would just put a sticky note on one of us' forehead and just write the name of someone or something and like ask questions. The person who has the tag but doesn't know what it is asks questions, and the answer should be yes or no until he reaches the answer of what he is. And also I find it cool the fact that they're laughing so much, they're having so much fun. So the reason the nephew, Fred, has fun is because he knows something the others don't know. And every time they ask him a question, he laughs at their ignorance, kind of he's really having fun at that. And then when they all start laughing at the end, it's like now they're looking back to everything that happened when they didn't know and kind of reliving it and laughing at it.
Yeah, and also thinking that it could potentially apply to, like it applies fairly well to Scrooge.
Yeah, exactly. Looking back at it with the knowledge that it's about Scrooge. And one last one, which comes from really near the end of the story. Some people laughed to see the alteration in him, but he let them laugh. Little heeded them, for he was wise enough to know that nothing ever happened on this globe for good, at which some people did not have their fill of laughter in the outset. And knowing that such as these would be blind anyway, he thought it quite as well that they should wrinkle up their eyes in grins, as have the malady in less attractive forms. His own heart laughed, and that was quite enough for him.
I suppose that's by the end.
That's by the end. So
Yeah.
we get some more laughter. It's a recurring motif. The word alteration is kind of recurrent. I don't know if it's to Dickens, to this novel, or just to the time period.
Yeah.
To say change. Again, we have some archaic expressions, like for good. Malady, that's a French one.
Yeah. Well, plenty of let's say what you would so-called like sophisticated words come directly from French, like malady, but alteration too. Alteration.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I find it quite interesting because nowadays if you say that something has been altered, it means it's sort of a negative term.
Not necessarily, I think.
Fair.
Yeah, I would imagine it more like
Yeah.
technical. Like, yeah, you messed up. Maybe you messed up with something.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys.
So I guess that was it. So,
Yeah, we hope you enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was.
And there'll be part 2.
Yeah.
Because when I said to Alex, let's do a Christmas carol. And he was like, yeah, that would be cool. Let's do Christmas carols. I can talk about like German Christmas carols.
Briefly. Yeah.
And I said, well, I meant the novel A Christmas Carol, but okay, sure, let's do that too.
So yeah.
So, see you very soon.
Since we're cheeky monkeys. So, yeah.
We'll do it. See
Yeah.
ya.
See ya.
And like, subscribe.
And all that. See ya.
See ya.
Bye bye.